researching the paranormal since a very young age. You're still young. Then in 2010 you started getting involved more heavily in practical investigation as you felt that research within the field didn't seem to be pushing forward. He's the author of the very good, the excellent Paranormal. So please give a warm welcome for Kev Kerr.
Hello everyone. As you know now, I'm Kev Kerr. I'm the lead researcher and investigator with Parationalise. I'm also heavily involved with team impact as well. Today we're going to take a brief look at the difference between paranormal investigation and Evestigation. Okay, so start off with a few questions. Raise your hands if you have ever attended a paranormal event night. Happy days. So, again, can you raise your hands if you've attended a paranormal investigation? Brilliant. How about an Evestigation? Some who've read my website would know what one of them is. And the team members there with me. Okay, so probably the easiest way is to go through what an Evestigation is. Okay, so they tend to be similar to what we see on TV. Just have a dig at my own team, but there we go. As we see, Zach Bagan's, nice K2 meter. We call out to spirits, we ask for spirits to come and talk to us and come sit with us or touch us or all the kind of different things we do. We tend to be just waiting for anything to happen, paranormal or otherwise, whether it's a knocking noise, a noise that we can't explain that will be paranormal in those situations regardless. And obviously we communicate a lot with bleeps and the flashes of LEDs, it says with a K2. On top of that, it tends to be more of a social gathering than anything else. There's a lot of meeting up with friends. You know, a lot of us in our teams, we all know each other very well. We have good old crack. We have coffee and biscuits. We tend to be sitting around talking about personal experiences. And 50% of the time actually investigating anything. Same time, it's almost always done in the dark. You know, the time when you can't see anything, which has always blown my mind. When you can't see anything, what's the point? At best, you rely on infrared cameras and a tiny monitor screen on your camera. Your senses are also heightened. You're in a kind of point where every noise, every feeling, everything is, well, paranormal, and there's ghosts in the room. This is usually when you're unsure of your surroundings. Probably the first time you've been to a place, you might have actually been there 5 or 6 times previously. You also use really highly scientific equipment, like the infrared thermometer, the spirit box, a K2 meter, infrared cameras, and of course the Mel meter. No, these aren't scientific. We'll go through that in a bit. It's usually followed with hours of watching a blank screen with a room with nothing moving for hours and hours on end. It's usually about 5 to 10 cameras, randomly placed out in different rooms. No reason to why they're there, they're just filming every room possible. It's usually on infrared camera as well, which is not the best for reviewing. You can't really see what's happening, and a lot of people who've done this would know it starts to play tricks as you think something's moving, but it's not, it's the same scene. Usually as well, this is reviewed some weeks after the initial recording. Now that could either be down to the fact that we're busy, we're going around to it, or every weekend or every day you go out for an investigation and you've got hours and hours and hours of footage to catch up on, and there's probably only 2 people in your team who would actually look at it. Seem familiar? I suppose it is fair to ask. Have you attended an investigation? Don't be ashamed, we're all guilty of it, okay? We do think this is a natural investigation. Within the whole paranormal world, obviously in this room, there may be a few people who are very different, but as an overall in the paranormal world, an investigation is what we consider an actual investigation. So yes, that's me, as you can see, on an investigation, doing my thing. And for those who look at photos in the paranormal and need help seeing what they're seeing, that's me there, in the red circle. So, what is a paranormal investigation? Well, usually, as we know, anyone who has actually done the ASSAP investigator training course would know that's a very important part. It's a strict confidentiality agreement with the client. There'll be no mention of the investigation across social media or the internet. I usually know who's a good team and who's not, in all fairness, when you're looking through Facebook and they go, we got an investigation today at 24 Rickety Road, you know, and they come out with it, they say, we've got this is happening, that's happening, these are their names. That is not the way to do it. It's a very, very bad way to do it. We usually use pseudonyms to protect those involved. So Mrs. Miller becomes Mrs. Hobday. It's just how it works. You change people's names, people are pushing to go into the public with this. It's probably a good idea you're not investigating it. Storing data securely, as some of you might have noticed on my memory stick, that is BitLockers. Everything I do within the paranormal, everything I save, whether it's footage, whether it's paperwork of any kind, is stored securely. It's BitLockered up, no one can get to it. And I also have at home a big filing cabinet with all the paperwork that comes with it as well. That stays there and it's locked. Also, you spend probably most of your time with the investigation interviewing witnesses of apparent phenomena. You're gathering second-hand information. Always remember this is second-hand information. You meet with additional witnesses, people who you didn't think was involved, but after interviewing the initial witnesses, someone else comes along. You'll find out exactly what has occurred, at least through the eyes of the witness. Also, it usually involves a small amount of investigators. The only way to describe it is I see a lot of people go, we're going to have a small investigation. There's about 20 of us. And you think that just doesn't work. You cannot control 20 people at once. It's almost impossible. So, these third parties that might come along might be mental health professionals. Okay, they know what they're talking about. We can't, especially me or anyone else who's just an investigator, cannot turn around and say someone is bipolar, someone is suffering with any kind of mental illness. We can't say that. Okay, so we'll bring in a third party to find that out for us. We have structural engineers and building surveyors. Believe it or not, there's a lot of movement in the house. As we know, the old classic thing of, oh, it's the wind, it's the structure, it's the timbers in the roof. Again, we can say that, but without some expertise, someone to turn around and say, actually, this is the issue. And they go back and they either fix the issue or they say, okay, fair enough, we understand that. Other investigators. It has been known, with Parationalise as well, it was just me. If I found myself in a situation that I couldn't handle personally on my own, I would call in another investigator to help. A lot of people have teams, which obviously helps that situation, but we're always there to help anyone who needs it. There's obviously other experts in various fields, but definitely not, and people might hate me for this, psychic mediums. Not in an investigation, not in a real investigation. It's not the best idea to walk in there with a psychic medium and start blurting about someone's Aunt Betty who's died and, yeah, you're being haunted by your grandma. Demonologists and Barry from down the pub. It's just as bad, okay? As investigators, we need to do it properly. We can't turn around and say, okay, it's a demonologist, he knows everything about demons, there's definitely a demon in your basement and it's haunting your child. You can imagine the mess you're going to make. Barry from down the pub probably tells you he knows everything there is about ghosts because he saw an orb once back in 1970. He's not really welcome. He's not following the same code of ethics that you will be. It's usually involved only the occurrence that is mentioned by the client. We don't run in and go, right, I'm going to record the temperature because we've seen a shadow person, but there's no mention of cold spots or temperature drops by the client. You see a lot of people go in, tons of flight cases, all the equipment possible, and there's no need for it at all. There's nothing been mentioned that requires all these flight cases. You sit there, you can record EVPs and you look at poltergeist activity. You've had no issues with recording equipment, nothing. A film in a room with an IR camera with cold spots are recorded in that area, again, you should use a thermometer. You're not using a camera. This happens way too often. Okay, so as I said before, not arriving with a truck full of flight cases. Not using the Zap bag and swears it works bleepy flashy machine, whichever one comes out next month. The basic kit is enough. The notepad and pen to make notes during the interview and the investigation. The voice recorder to record interviews. You're not chasing EVPs, to record the interview. A video camera, again, to record the interview and also the investigation process. This covers you in more ways than possible, not just the fact you might see something fly across a room. At the same time, you also have recorded in front of you the conversations with the client if anything does go wrong. And I believe CJ is talking later about what can go wrong when it does go wrong. It's usually more than one visit. One visit, maybe the initial interview might be fine and everything's great and you can explain it away, there's no problem. But going around just one night, loads of cameras, set up, tell them exactly what's happening. Right, that's great, bye. hope you had a good time, we've investigated. You know, it doesn't work. Usually, you steady build up a rapport with the client is what's required. Understanding who they are, understand that they can trust you, understand the situation that you're in as well as they're in. Some investigations last weeks, months, and even years, depending on what's happening. What you try and do is investigate at the same time of day or night the phenomena occurred. There's no point in having an investigation going on overnight in a house when at 10 o'clock every morning something slides across the room in the kitchen. It doesn't make sense to then go at midnight and look at all this stuff happening in the hope that it's going to happen. There we go. So, belief systems. Belief systems should not affect the investigation in any way. Beliefs are best left at the door, and that is a very difficult thing to do. Conclusions should only be made based on the evidence that you found during that investigation, and data should be accurately logged and not manipulated in favour of the client's investigator's belief system. Critical thinking is a must throughout the whole process. We can't walk in and say, this is a demon of, this is Satan that's here, and because of my belief system, I'm going to give you a crucifix, and all your problems are going to go away. It doesn't work like that. There's nothing to back that up. So, usually an investigation will conclude with usable data and a new hypothesis for later repeated experimentation. Especially with team impact, we do a lot of work where we find something, we get a hypothesis, and using the scientific method, we go over it and over it and over it until I think we're on a third now. We've got a lot of things in the pipeline where we're testing, especially alongside Kieran, who's dissolved. So most importantly of all this, if you are working with a client, is closure. You have to ensure that you're not walking out that door, leaving that person completely vulnerable and petrified. You make sure everything's explained and you understand their situation and they understand theirs. So what's the point in all this? Me nattering on, not as ranty as I usually am, but quite ranty. So the paranormal field has become a farce. And I wait for boo hisses and rotten tomatoes, but it's a joke. Okay? Unfortunately, it's only getting worse. The majority of paranormal investigators, or people who call themselves investigators, are just going out on investigations. They're not actually doing anything right. The way to put it is knowing the difference between investigation and investigation is the first step to ensuring we can push through research in the paranormal field. Okay, we're completely stagnant, completely. We've stopped. There's a few little bits going on around where people are doing research. The rest of us are just having a jolly on the weekend to get out and socialise in the dark and enjoy the fun. A real paranormal investigator is not there to do that. A real paranormal investigator will step forward, look at what we need to research, find out why these things are happening, and then we'll build experimentation around that to build understanding. Okay, so pushing forward, a huge recommendation from myself to all investigation is to read Steve Parsons, who sat here interviewing before, Ghostology, the Art of the Ghost Hunting. Please ignore that cover. Is he in here? Because it's like, ooh. Nightmare cover, doesn't look very professional for what it is. What's that? That's basically, yeah, when you know Steve, you'll know, yeah, that's definitely Steve's book. But as for someone who just walked past it on a shelf, might think it's probably not. This will give you the most effective information possible. To new and old investigators in the field, I have a lot of people turn around. I'm quite a young guy in the field. I have a lot of people go, I've done this 20 years, do you know? And say, well, actually, I know a lot more about what's happening now than what happened 30 years ago when we didn't solve the problem then. This book is very good at getting people into the tech side, the interviewing side, everything an investigator needs to know on a very basic level. So if you do get a chance, I think it's available on Amazon. Get on Amazon, order it, have a good read through it, and you'll see this is the way we should be investigating. This is my stuff, if anyone wants to know any more. www.pararationalise.org, which is currently being built, but I'll open it by next week, on Facebook and also on Twitter. Thanks for listening. Is there any questions? Yeah.
Even if someone or a group of people have been on an investigation, would that necessarily negate any genuine phenomena that might have occurred during that period?
The issue with an investigation is you're logging nothing from it. You may get a video recording, but there's 1,000 explanations to what could be on that video. If you're actually on an investigation and you come up with an experiment, to look at that phenomena again and again and again, over and over again, based upon just that happened. It seemed like a shadow person walked past, for example. The problem with investigations is it's, all right, we'll film it, we'll look for EVPs, and we'll do what they do on the telly, and then we'll go. And we had a good old chat through an EMF meter with a ghost. There's no proof of that. That gets us no further than anything else, bar we had a good chat with probably an imaginary ghost. Is that right? Yeah.
Jim, that's what you're saying about scientific method and developing hypotheses and then testing them.
Yeah.
Because that seems to me to be the great difficulty in all of this.
It is, yeah.
Data. So can you expand on that a little bit, how you actually go about testing that hypothesis once you've established?
Once we've got something. Okay, so let's do an example. To use Woodchester Mansion, a constant at Woodchester Mansion is stone throwing. Okay, and that's happened to a vast majority of visitors that go there, and myself included. And I go in with a very, let's say, critical thinking as soon as I walk through the door, and twice it happened within that investigation. So that gave us something. That was like, that's a constant that we know of. Okay, so how are we going to investigate? So the plan is, we haven't done it yet, the plan is to go in and we'll basically mesh an area within the building in, say, one of the halls, and we will be recording outside and inside, and we'll do exactly the same as what they do on the investigation. We will call out, we will ask for things to happen, and we'll see if that stone comes from within that netted area or without. So once we get that, and we find out actually this is coming from outside and we know no one else is about, we look at it again and we say, okay, why is that happening? So now we know this is the first step, and then we find the next step, and then we find the next step until we find the actual answer. It could literally be bats dislodging stones above people. It could be all these things, but we given that answer isn't good enough just to go, yeah, it's just bats in the roof.
It's difficult though to get a truly scientific method having a repeatable phenomenon.
Yeah, but but this is exactly it. It's finding the points that we can do that with. So you're not going to go in one night and find out the exact repeating phenomena again and again. Very lucky with Woodchester. It's, you know, these guys have run it for how many years now? 12 years. So they know of, they're there at the investigations with these people, or the investigations, they're there as these people are doing things, they're hearing the phenomena firsthand as soon as it happens. So that gives us a very good idea of a constant.
So then that's what the lady heard saying. All this phenomena is being found initially on these investigations.
I'm not knocking investigations, there's very much a start. So investigations are important. One, they get people into the paranormal. Like you go on an event, suddenly it's brilliant. You know, I had great fun. Love running around in the dark, scared shitless, brilliant. You know, and then people go, well, what is this about? And it's those people that tend to go through the rankings, so to speak. Anyone else?
I've got a quick question. And how do we replicate the spontaneous incidents that take place then? It's, you know, a lot of these things happen, they happen on a one-off occasion,
Yeah.
and we're going back into a location and we're expecting that to happen again. How do we try and replicate that?
We try and replicate what happened when it happened. So what we have no control of is the actual spontaneous phenomena that's occurred. We haven't got any control over a woman or shape of a woman walking through a roof. We don't have any control of that. We know where it happened, we know what time it happened, we know the individuals involved. They are the only pieces of information we can get. So we have to just copy that. And then we wait. And then we copy, and we wait, copy, wait. And from that, if we then suddenly find something, then we can step again. Okay, well that happened during this time. Why did that happen? Instead of, it was a ghost of a woman who walked past. I know that because I believe in ghosts and I can sense them and they talk to me. It's best to take it steady. We need to slow down as a whole field and go, belief systems, fine, we need to hold them back until we can find out what the answers are. Yeah.
What are you trying to find? And what I mean by that is you'll never recreate the exact circumstances necessary for a scientific community to say that's an exact replica of what happened last time. So in that sense, you'll never have your proof or acceptance of any proof.
It's not a kind of acceptance of proof. A lot of people say, I'm going to prove the paranormal is real, I'm going to prove the paranormal wrong. You know, we don't know what the answer is.
So what's the point?
Precisely. He's wasting your time. A good friend of mine says to me, every time I even mention the paranormal, he goes, what are you doing in your life? You know, he's like, mate, there's not ghosts, there's not this, well there is ghosts and there is that, just get on with it. But the difference is we don't know what it is, and people are intrigued by that. So we will continue doing this same scenario of investigation again and again. When it comes to trying to add the scientific method in, we can't add that 100% perfect, every time, you know, proof that gravity works kind of situation. We can't develop a theory that works.